All right, let's work through 3 problems from chapter 14. The first one here is problem 14-1A. And I want to show you that what I'm going to do is, instead of reading all this stuff up here at the top and reading through all these items right here, I want us to first go look at the actual instructions, because many times we're giving a lot of information in accounting courses, and my suggestion to you guys, both for the class, for the test, and then future certification exams, is to read the question first, because sometimes you may possibly be able to ignore some of the data that's given to you. So basically what they want us to do is to prepare an answer sheet with the following product column headings. We want to show the product cost, which of course are going to have direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. And then we're also going to have a column that is going to be just for period cost. And then the cost item, we're going to have a line for each item that's listed above. And then what we're going to be doing is plotting them out into their respective area. Is it a product cost? If so, is it DM, DL, or MOH? Which again, DM is direct materials, DL is direct labor, and MOH is short for manufacturing overhead. Or is it a period cost? Alright, and then we're going to end up totaling up these amounts. Alright, so we're going to total up the dollars in each column. And you'll see that I've got the check figures already listed or posted on the document, so at least you can verify that you've done it correctly. And then they want us to compute the cost to produce one helmet. All right, and when we say to produce, we're talking about what does it cost us to manufacture or produce one single helmet. All right, so our manufacturing, aka product cost, would then need to be totaled up. DM plus DL plus MOH. That's our total manufacturing cost. We would add those up, and we're going to divide it by the number of helmets actually produced. So if we go back up to our paragraph here, it tells us that 10,000 helmets per month are being manufactured, and that the data below here is for a month. So I want to highlight here that you guys need to be very careful on your Wiley homework, because sometimes they're going to give you numbers for the year, annual, or they're going to break it down by the month. Read the questions and the fields and the columns that you are having to fill out answers in. Okay, Wiley challenges you all to make sure that you understand what you're doing, and those are the curveballs that they occasionally throw at you. All right, so now let's read the data. Lott Company specializes in manufacturing a unique model of bicycle helmet. The model is well accepted by consumers, and the company has enough orders to keep the factory production at 10,000 helmets per month, which is 80% of its full capacity. Now I want to say something here about capacity. We'll talk about this more in future chapters, but basically what we're saying is that the company could actually produce more than 10,000 helmets in a month based on the capacity that they have at their facility. Property, plant, and equipment. They've got enough time extra available to run those machines and produce more helmets if it was feasible and the company received orders. All right, so could we calculate how many total helmets per month they could actually produce? What would be 100% of capacity? Sure, we could. Let's take the 10,000 units and divide it by 0.8. All right, so 10,000 helmets is 80% of how many total helmets that could be produced. All right, so 12,500. We could produce an additional 2,500 units of helmets if we were to receive orders or warrant the need for it. All right, so capacity, we're going to see that again more as we move through the semester. All right, so let's go through here and classify these items on our list before we plot them into their respective areas. Rent on factory equipment, manufacturing overhead. All right, so let's plot in here MOH. Insurance on factory building, manufacturing overhead. Raw materials used in the actual manufacture of the bicycle helmets, direct materials. Utility costs for factory, MOH, or manufacturing overhead. Supplies for general office. Notice this says office. It does not say factory. All right, so what did we discuss in lecture? We're going to have product cost and we're going to have period cost. These first four that we've looked at are all directly related to the actual manufacturing of the product. But this general office is a period cost, not a product cost. Wages for assembly line workers. Assembly line workers are physically and directly involved in the manufacture. Therefore, they are direct labor, not indirect labor that would be manufacturing overhead, but direct labor. Depreciation on office equipment. Again, notice it says office, folks. So for the office, it's going to be a period cost. Miscellaneous materials. Items that are used in the manufacturing process. However, they are so minuscule in nature or so hard to trace to the actual product item by item that we are just going to put them into manufacturing overhead because they are in essence indirect materials. Okay, so manufacturing overhead. The factory manager's salary. He's the manager of the factory, so of course it is a manufacturing related expense to cover his salary. But he is not directly going to be touching this individual line. He may actually have other products besides the bicycle helmet that he oversees the factory manufacturing systems of. All right, so we're going to put him into the manufacturing overhead because it's indirect labor, not direct labor. Property taxes on the factory building. Again, notice this one says factory, just like these upper few had. The factory building is in direct relation to the manufacturing of the items. It is one of our costs that has to be covered. Therefore, we're going to lump it into our manufacturing overhead. Advertising for helmets. Advertising is a period cost. Any type of selling and administrative type of cost or expense is going to go to period. Sales commissions, also period. Depreciation on factory building, manufacturing overhead. All right, so there's what you needed to have plotted out on that information. And now I'm going to go and show you what this would look like if you put it into the particular columns. All right, so we've got product cost, DM, DL, and MOH. We've got the rent on the factory equipment, insurance on factory building, raw materials, utility costs for the factory, supplies for the general office, wages for the assembly line workers. We've got depreciation on office equipment, miscellaneous materials, factory manager's salary, property taxes on factory building, advertising for helmets, sales commissions, and depreciation on factory building. So notice these were all plotted underneath their particular area. So for direct materials, we use $75,000 worth of raw materials. Therefore, the total indirect materials is $75,000. Direct labor, we had those assembly line workers, their wages of $53,000 for a total of $53,000 for direct labor. Manufacturing overhead, all of those indirect materials and indirect labor and other types of factory cost and expenses all get put into this account called manufacturing overhead, which we are going to talk about in multiple chapters throughout Principles 2. Alright, so notice that each one of those were plotted into the column, and if we add those up, we've got $20,100 worth of manufacturing overhead. And then for the period cost, the supplies for the general office, the depreciation on office equipment, the advertising for the helmets, and the sales commissions. These items right here are the kinds of things that are going to show up in the month incurred, or in the quarter incurred, or in the year incurred on the income statement. These other types of cost, we are going to be carrying them as inventoriable cost. In other words, they sit on our balance sheet until the items have been sold. Until the finished goods, those bicycle helmets, have actually been sold, then these costs are going to be carried on our books as work in process inventory or finished goods inventory. And any raw materials not currently in process or on the assembly line being utilized to produce a product would also be showing up. Okay, so raw materials inventory is inventory of raw materials that have not been put into process yet. So direct materials plus direct labor plus manufacturing overhead equals our manufacturing or production cost. And if we add those three up, we get $148,100 total. And again, we want to calculate a cost per helmet. Now this is our cost per helmet, which will sooner or later show up as our cost of goods sold per unit. Alright, so our marketing and our salespeople and management are going to be using this cost number right here in trying to calculate what they want to sell the helmets for. Okay, so $14.81 is our cost per helmet. We definitely want to sell it for more than $14.81. Alright, let's go look at problem 14-2A. Alright, for 14-2A, we are given a data set that shows us how to go about calculating the cost of an item, and we are going to be having to extend or make some calculations to come up with some of the numbers like we saw in 14-1A. Alright, so let's read through this problem right here. They're going to have us do the exact same type of thing. They're wanting us to formulate the columns and come up with the cost. Alright, so we are going to be manufacturing 1,500 of these audio systems per month. They want us to calculate the total of direct materials, direct labor, manufacturing overhead, and then also the period cost based on the information that's given. So again, notice right here it says 1,500 systems per month, and we are going to be calculating out per month how much these items are going to cost us in total. So we've got Bell Company, a manufacturer of audio systems that started their production in October of 2014. For the preceding 3 years, Bell had been a retailer of audio systems. After a thorough survey of audio system markets, Bell decided to turn its retail store into an audio equipment factory. Raw materials cost for an audio system will be $74 per unit. Alright, so the first thing right here we see is raw materials, $74 per unit. Therefore, you guys need to start yourself a list where you plot these numbers out. $74 per unit times 1,500 units means our direct materials is going to be a total of $111,000. Next, they tell us that the workers on the production lines are on average paid $12 per hour. These are the direct labor folks. And an audio system usually takes 5 hours to complete. So calculation number 2, $12 an hour times 5 hours per unit times 1,500 units means our direct labor is going to be $90,000 per month. Next, we see, in addition, the rent on the equipment used to assemble the audio systems amounts to $4,900 per month. All right, so this is going to be a manufacturing overhead item because it's rent on equipment used in the manufacturing process. It is not the office, it is the factory. Indirect materials cost $5 per system. Alright, so $5 per system times 1,500 means we are going to have $7,500 worth of indirect materials in the manufacturing overhead category. Next, we have a supervisor that was hired to oversee production. Her monthly salary is $3,000. $3,000 in manufacturing overhead. We have a factory janitorial cost of $1,300 monthly, also manufacturing overhead. Advertising cost for the audio system will be $9,500 per month. That is a period cost. The factory building depreciation expense, again, this is factory building depreciation expense, not office. Therefore, that $7,800 per year is going to go to the manufacturing overhead category. And then lastly, property taxes on the factory building will be $9,000 per year. It's on the factory. These are costs and expenses that have to be incurred and covered in order to manufacture the goods, so that would go into the manufacturing overhead category. So let's now go take a look at the solution for 14-2A. Let me scroll this down here. Alright, so here are all of our numbers and our calculations. Again, you can see them plotted out. If necessary, you guys can pause the screen and make sure that you've got the correct columns and understand why things got put in the column that they're showing up in, just like we did on 1A. If you needed to double check the numbers, I do want you guys to notice here that we've got number 4 and number 5, which was for the depreciation expense. Was given as an annual number. Therefore, we need to take it and divide it by 12. And then the property taxes were also given as an annual number, and we need to divide that by 12. Alright, so if we were to flip back over here, let's double check the wording. Notice that this says per year, and property taxes per year. Take those numbers and divide it by 12 because we're trying to put everything else on a monthly basis. Alright, so in doing that, notice that $650 or 1/12 worth of the depreciation for the factory building is listed, and then $750 or 1/12 of the $9,000 in property taxes is listed. And then if we wanted to calculate the cost per unit to manufacture, we would take DM plus DL plus MOH and total those numbers up and divide it by 1,500 total units to give us $146.07 per unit. Again, this is the cost of manufacturing it. Management, sales, and marketing would be using that information to calculate what they think we could sell it for and hopefully generate ourselves some net income. Problem 14-3A is excellent practice for the test that covers Chapter 14. I want you guys to take a few minutes and plot through as many of these answers as you can before you watch the second video that I'm going to upload. I want you to use the formula sheet that was posted and or given out. On one side of the sheet is a spot for you to fill in the handwritten formula version, and then the other side of that, or the second page of that, is where you could plot those formulas into the T accounts. Okay, for many of you, I know you guys memorize a lot of stuff, but memorizing is not going to help you out the farther along you get in your college career and or your future career. T accounts are an excellent way of plotting in the information and solving for the missing item. Especially for those of you that plan on taking some type of certification exam later. You're going to be given all kinds of data and you're going to have to find the missing piece of the puzzle. So learn to use the T accounts as my recommendation to you. Again, I will post another video about 14-3A, but it's my recommendation to you that you try to go through and solve all of these by yourself. Write out what you're using data-wise, draw out T accounts, and see if you can't work through each and every one of these. And then watch the video over 14-3A.